In less than 48 hours, I went from $0 to making a whopping $420,000 by selling an online course and community, as you can see here. And while it's pretty mind-blowing to make a decade of income in less than 2 days, the basic principles of making money online are literally the same for everyone. So if you want to build a product that actually sells and brings you closer to that ultimate sort of goal of financial freedom, then this is exactly what I'll do. Now, I spend my life building products for the world's biggest creators, and the question I probably get asked the most is, what product should I build that's going to make me a ton of money? And if I'm honest, this is a terrible question to ask, especially if we're serious about making money online, because it's almost impossible to answer in any meaningful way without being what I call an archaeologist first. Let me explain. After Ali Abdaal launched his New York Times best-selling book Feel Good Productivity, he asked me to create a productivity-based product for him. But to figure out what exactly I should build, I had to dig deep into his audience's needs, pain points, and desires, like an archaeologist, following a two-step framework. Firstly, the snapshot. I had to build a snapshot of how his audience currently thinks about and approaches productivity, by getting as many of them as possible to fill out a productivity survey, which I've linked in the description section below. And from this, I got hundreds of incredible responses, which I condensed into this relatively concise data snapshot page, which gave me a really good broad understanding of his audience's productivity landscape. Then I asked around 20 to 30 people to hop on a call with me for what I call the mum test. Basically, in the same way we shouldn't ask our mum whether or not our business is a good idea because she loves us and she will lie to us, we shouldn't really ask anyone whether or not our product is a good idea because everyone will lie to us a little bit too. This is why I ask people to join a 15 or 20-minute call to get as much detailed and trustworthy data as possible. And there's like a bunch of techniques I use to ensure the data I'm receiving is as good as possible, which I can cover in like a later video, but basically I'm deep diving into their survey responses. From doing all of this, I built up this super concrete and detailed map of all of the audience's core problems when it comes to being more productive. So understanding the problem is really the first thing we want to think about when it comes to building a killer product that sells. And fundamentally, this helps us to craft a grand slam offer, which is what we're going to talk about now. Now, there are a few things that make a product valuable to someone, which is perfectly captured in Alex Hormozi's value equation, which goes something like this. So for a product to be perceived as high value, it must increase the chances of the dream outcome. So people will value a product more if they believe it's going to close the gap between their current reality and their dreams. 2, increases the perceived likelihood of success. So people will value a product more if they genuinely believe this product will help them achieve their dreams. 3, decreases the time delay. So people will value a product more if they believe it will help them achieve their dreams in less time. And finally, decrease the effort and sacrifice. So people will value a product more if it helps them to achieve their dream without them having to work too hard for it. So when I was building this product, my next step was to turn our list of problems into a list of solutions that were high value in accordance with this equation. You can think of it like being an architect drawing up the blueprint for our product. In practice, this meant first turning each of our problems into solution-oriented language. So for example, let's say one of the problems is focus is hard because I don't have clear goals. We can turn that into solution-oriented language by saying how to set crystal clear goals for a purpose-driven life. And the purpose of this is that it helps us to think about solutions to the problem in a clearer way, and also gives us really good copy for our marketing assets and sales pages and things like that later down the road. We can then craft our solution delivery vehicle. Now, this is super important because this helps us to figure out what we're actually going to deliver. And I highly recommend you be as divergent and creative in your thinking here when it comes to thinking about possible solutions to each of those problems. And it doesn't really matter whether or not you're willing or able to do those things, you just want to get all those things on a piece of paper. The goal here is to think of as many possible solutions and products as we can. For example, I broke down my solution delivery vehicles into one-to-one solutions, one-to-many solutions, small group solutions, and other creative ideas. And finally, we go through all of these solution delivery vehicles and trim them down to those that have the highest value. That means they're in accordance with the value equation itself, while also minimizing cost. For example, we could have built a product where we send a productivity expert to every customer's house. Now that would be high value according to the equation, but it would be way too much of a cost to be worth doing. And as you can see here, this included courses, communities, digital templates, newsletters, and things like that, which all form part of the final product. As a bonus tip, I like to write a sales page at this point because it nicely captures all the previous steps in the process. It helps me to nail the target audience, address their pain points, and provide a grand slam solution that I can easily put into words. So with our Grand Slam offer in mind, we can begin building our minimum viable product. And I want to begin by addressing a couple of huge mistakes that people make when it comes to building the MVP. The first mistake is building a product that nobody's asked for that solves a problem that nobody has, which is hopefully solved by the previous 2 steps in its process. The second mistake is thinking that we need to build the perfect product from launch. And it makes literally 0 sense to spend a whole load of time, money, energy, resources on crafting the perfect product before it's financially viable, unless we're already a big company like Apple, because there's almost 0 chance that we're going to get this absolutely right from the get-go. And the third mistake is thinking that a minimum viable product is just a low quality version of the thing that we eventually want to create. Instead, the way we want to think about the minimum viable product is that it's a version of our product with a limited number of features, but each feature is as good as it can possibly be. So you can think of the MVP as a prototype which is developed to the point where someone is actually willing to take out their cash and pay you for that thing, so that we can begin iterating and improving on that product with the customer. For example, the MVP version 1 product I built for Ali was called Productivity Club, and Productivity Club was designed to test one idea. How can we best run weekly reviews, and do people find them genuinely useful? And this was like a totally free experiment, but gave us a ton of useful data that we used to inform the product that we launched in April. But even the final version of the product that we launched in April is still something I very much consider to be a minimum viable product, because I'm still working on the product. I'm still developing it out alongside the customers by asking for feedback after every session and speaking to customers one-to-one. This whole thing is just an iterative process. The point is, we don't need to be perfect to make lots of money. We just need to be intentional about giving customers features that they genuinely care about and will benefit from. This isn't to say that I just threw everything together in a weekend though. Like, I gave a considerable amount of thought to the transformation that we're offering to students, the price point, the spaces, the copy, the creatives, like the whole shebang. But we also don't want to wait too long to begin validating our product ideas, which brings me on to probably the number 1 way to validate any product idea. Before we get into that though, it's worth making one point abundantly clear. It's no point making an amazing product if nobody's going to buy it. It's the reason why houses have estate agents. They help to market and sell the properties. Imagine spending hundreds of hours crafting the perfect product, testing it out with a bunch of different people, only to realise that nobody cares on the day it launches. Luckily, there's a pretty decent way that we can gauge people's interest, validate the product idea, and sort of be our own product estate agent. And that's by building a waitlist. The idea of the waitlist is that we're able to tell people a little bit about the product, and people can register their interest to hear about the product when it eventually launches. In other words, they're demonstrating their intent to purchase. Sure, not everyone on our waitlist can or will buy the product, but if we use like a relatively conservative conversion rate estimation of around 1%, then we have a pretty solid understanding of how many people are probably going to buy our product should we get our launch strategy right, which I'm going to talk about in a second. For example, I built this super simple waitlist page relatively early on, so people could read a little bit about the product. They have this clear CTA to leave their email, and if people do leave their email, they'll get access to this exclusive early bird discount too. Now, the copy on this page has changed a little bit since the initial launch, but hopefully you get the point. And in total, we got over 30,000 people registering their interest in the product before it launched. And so the point of the waitlist is that we want to maximize interest in the product before it launches, and then we want to maximize sales by putting that waitlist to good use, which we're going to talk about now. The Glastonbury Music Festival has run for over 30 years and attracts over 120,000 people each year. Selling all 120,000 of these tickets sounds like a mammoth task, and yet they manage to do it every year in a matter of minutes. Why? Because of this thing called signaling. Once you've registered your interest in the tickets, the organisers will tell you when the tickets are going to go on sale. They'll also tell you that they've got far more people pre-registered for tickets than they have tickets available, and also they'll tell you that they've only got like 5 or 6 tickets available per person. In short, they're signalling to people what's going to happen before it actually happens, so the market can prepare itself. So this is exactly what we want to be doing within our own launch strategy too. So how did I turn a 30,000 strong waitlist into almost $500,000 in less than 2 days using signaling? First, in the 7 days leading up to launch, I sent a 7-day email sequence that addressed the recipient's specific needs for a productivity product. I also mentioned the oversubscribed nature of the product and also the terms of the sale, which include a cap on sales and also a 20% discount that was going to be reduced after 24 hours. Secondly, we created a free launch event to maximize early sales. Basically, we invited everyone on the waitlist to a free 2-hour workshop, a productivity workshop, where we had around 3,000 attendees who all got like super hyped, animated, and energized by the idea of improving their productivity and also by the product itself. So when the workshop finished at 4 p.m. on Saturday, the 20th of April, we were able to open the checkout to thousands of eager people who were all ready and willing to buy. In fact, within 5 minutes of the checkout opening, over 1/5 of the spaces were sold out. And finally, we prepared a 7-day deadline sequence that was going to be used to continue to get sales before the checkout closed around a week later. But unfortunately, or fortunately I should say, we had sold out within 2 days, so we never actually had to use that deadline sequence at all. So I'm not going to talk about that in this video. So once we have our waitlist, we need to have a launch strategy that focuses on signaling, driving interest, and maximizing early sales. And that's pretty much how I made $500,000 in 2 days.